It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of the week, and I'd locked myself in my bedroom and I'd drawn the blinds in the hope that I could block out the whole world. I'd taken a couple of Valium and I lay under the covers absolutely sobbing my heart out. I was having a major panic and anxiety attack. But to be honest, that wasn't particularly unusual. I had those most days. I was depressed. I was petrified. And I felt just so utterly, utterly alone in the world, completely alone. My son was 2 and he was at nursery, and I didn't know how I was going to get out of bed to go and collect him in a couple of hours' time. And I felt like the life force within me had been completely drained away. And I didn't know how to feel better. I had just had an enormous argument with my boyfriend again, and this time the relationship was over. I was living in his house and I had to find somewhere else to live within the next week. And I didn't have any savings. I had no income at the time. I didn't have a car. I was utterly dependent on him. And that was terrifying, but I knew how to survive life. I'd been surviving life for many, many years. I was resourceful and I would figure it out. That wasn't actually the problem. The problem was I was so utterly exhausted because I had literally no sense of self. I didn't know who I was. And some people will say, well, how can you not know who you are? I don't know if anyone in the room can relate, but that was my story. I didn't know who I was. And when anything external to me kind of went wrong, or there was a bump in the road, or life threw a curveball, I would crumble. And because I didn't have that foundation, that solid sense of self, you know, it was like years and years and years of drama and stuff coming at me. I had reached a point with the end of this relationship of having nothing left because I didn't have that rock-solid foundation that could deal with it. And then it occurred to me that I had become my mother. Okay? But this bit actually isn't funny. So if I could take a snapshot of me that day in that bedroom and compare it to the day that my mum killed herself, it was identical. So the day my mum died, and she died alone, she'd locked herself in her bedroom one afternoon in the middle of the week and drawn the curtains, and she overdosed on pills, completely alone, and she wasn't found for 24 hours. That's how alone she was. And she too had broken up with her boyfriend. And she too had a week or 2 left before she had to find somewhere to live. And she wasn't working and didn't have an income. But again, that wasn't really the problem. She was resourceful. She would have figured it out. But she was utterly exhausted and spent because for years and years, she too didn't know who she was. And the terrifying thing about not knowing who you are, and the sad thing about it, is just how lonely you feel, because my experience, and I know it was the same for my mum, is nobody else knew. Only I knew how that felt. And I remember my mum's funeral, and everybody said, I didn't know. And that was the lonely piece. But my light bulb moment, when I realized I had become my mother, I realized that I had learned how to do life one particular way. I'd learned to do life her way, and I was just modeling her. I'd somehow, amazingly, lined up every element of my life to reach a point where I was able to be her that day, which was my worst case scenario. It was my most dreadful nightmare. And there I was, living it. And I thought, well, if I can learn how to do life that way, maybe I can learn how to do life a different way. Maybe there's another way. And that kind of excited me. And I made the decision that day to learn how to do life differently. And I didn't have a freaking clue how. But what I know, and when I look back in retrospect, is that when we make a fierce decision that's really full of emotion, that no matter what, I'm having this. For me, it was no matter what, I'm going to figure out who I am, and I'm going to learn to love that woman. And the universe has eyes and ears, and the universe then conspires and kind of lines things up to miraculously support us. And it did for me. And I didn't know where to begin, and all I knew to do was to get out of bed and go and get my son from nursery. And I was very motivated by having my son, because he was my reason to keep going, because no matter what, I wasn't going to do to him what my mum did to me, even though I know she didn't mean it. But he was my motivation at that point. What lined up to support me, the miracles that came into place, that took me on my own journey of self-discovery, is what I now call the self-love affair. And I wrote a book about it. And now I'm a coach and a speaker and presenter, and I do all sorts of fun things where I get to teach and educate and inspire women on how to have their own self-love affair. And I'm very humbled by that. And I'm very humbled that it's become my purpose to tell people this miraculous piece of information that you can change. That life isn't good luck or bad luck, or you're born into a good family or a bad family. You can choose your life. And when I discovered that was such a miracle to me. I couldn't believe the whole world didn't know about it. So I've pretty much made it my mission to tell everybody that whatever your experience is of yourself or your life, if you're not happy with it, no matter how impossible it might seem, you can change it. And when you're clear on that decision, the universe will conspire and realign itself around you to support you. So I giggled a little bit when I was asked to speak this evening about brand me, or brand you, because my brand is under construction. Well, Daring and Mighty was founded in 2010, and it's going through a massive rebrand right now, which is very exciting. And at the same time, I'm creating a new brand called the School of Self-Love, which is equally very exciting. It's all happening. And this idea that you can be a brand, I think is really interesting. I love the metaphor, because just like a business needs a brand because it needs to know who the hell it is. It needs to know what it stands for, what it's about, what it's passionate about, what its message is, what's relatable about it to its target audience, right? That's what a business needs. And when a business has a strong sense of self and knows what its purpose is, it thrives. And it's the same as us. That's what I love about tonight's theme, is when we have a sense of self, when we know who we are and what we stand for, and when we can know that we are special and unique, and that we have a purpose, and that we're important, and that our tribe, our people, can relate to us, that has us thrive. That foundation, that sense of self, means we're thriving and we're not surviving like my mum was and like I was 8 years ago in that bedroom. And the awesome piece is, just like my brand is, I'm rebranding and I am under construction, we get to rebrand at any time we want, right? And you can choose to do it right now. You know, when 8 years ago in that bedroom, when I wasn't just rebranding, bloody hell, I was totally under construction. I was like a hole in the ground at that point. But I got to choose to change, and you can too today. And you can do it again tomorrow if you want, and the next day. You can rebrand till the cows come home. It's fine. So if I go back to when I was that hole in the ground, under construction, I basically had a brand manifesto. And my lovely friend Sandra introduced me to what a brand manifesto was recently, and if you need an amazing marketeer, she's your girl. When okay, so as much as I was being guided by, well, motivated, should I say, by my son to get better, to get to know and love myself, I was being guided by this quote. It was on my dad's office wall when I was a kid, and I used to read it every day, and I learned it off by heart. And something inside of me, and I call it my spiritual self, my true self, you know, that authentic, powerful, wise voice that we all have inside of us. From a young age, that voice said to me, "That's you." I just knew it. Like, it was just so normal to me. It's like, I am meant to do daring, mighty things. I'm meant to be that. So when I was under construction, and I started in that bedroom, that guided me. And I didn't know how to get there, but through a process, my self-love affair process of sort of changing up the limiting belief systems and the sabotaging behavioral habits and everything that was having me be a puppet in my own life, that all these behavioral habits and thoughts that belonged to somebody else, they weren't mine. As I was able to get rid of those and really step into the truth of who I am and develop that foundation, I was living into this. That was my manifesto. Every brand needs a manifesto. It needs to know where it's going. It needs to know what it's about. And that was mine. And so I was being called to be more, to dare mighty things. Then I created the business in 2010, Daring and Mighty. And I think as a personal brand, as brand you have to embody your manifesto, whatever that is for you. This is mine. It may or may not resonate with you, but I had to embody that. And as I healed day by day, year on year, I became daring and mighty. And the more I was unapologetic about who I am, and the more I fiercely loved myself and was open with the world about who I am, the more I thrived and the more fulfilled I felt and the more peace I have and the more happiness and health I have. It's the same with a brand. It needs that. And my business took off because my business is a personal brand. As I walk my talk and step into that, so does my business. I think I'm pretty unapologetic now about sharing with you just how proud I am of my life. I'm not shy or embarrassed or worried that I'm going to make somebody else in this room feel small or insignificant or worried that I might sound boastful, that I think my life is pretty shit hot. I love my life now because 8 years ago, and it was only 8 years ago, I was depressed, I was panicked, I suffered daily anxiety attacks, I was on antidepressants, I was unhealthy, I was very sad, I had no purpose, I was poor, I was on benefits, I was in an absolutely miserable relationship, or I was single, and I felt very utterly alone in the world. That was only 8 years ago. And today, I get to stand here and boast and very proudly tell you that I'm very fit and healthy and happy, and I have peace, and I have the most beautiful boyfriend who is such a king of a man who loves me so much, and it's the healthiest relationship I've ever known. And between us, we have 3 children, and on Saturday, we're picking up our new family cat, which I'm very excited about. And I have a thriving business that has me feel really on purpose and like I'm giving something back to the world. And it feels really good. And that stuff makes me happy. So I'm proud of that. And I feel like it's my responsibility and it's my duty to stand up and proudly tell you that and to be the proof and the evidence that you can change your life, to have it be whatever you want it to be. And I think every woman in this room has a responsibility to deeply know herself and deeply love herself and to go out and be more of you in the world, unapologetically, and inspire other women to do that too. Because as you do it, you're then inspiring others to do it, and then they do it. You know, People say self-love is egocentric and selfish. I think it's egocentric and selfish not to be the biggest, most awesome, most freaking mighty version of yourself. If you're not, you're doing the world a huge disservice, because we came here to be our special, unique brand me. We came here to be that. And we've all got something special to contribute, whether you want to be a world leader or a stay-at-home mum or a plumber or an artist or a marketeer, whatever it is that you want to be. And it's not about career, it's just, who are you? You have to be that person and inspire other people to be that person. The world isn't in flow right now, and it will be if we're all taking a stand for who we really are and loving that woman.